I'm making this video not for any particular audience, but because I'm going to be sending this off to members of Congress and others, and I'm hoping that the message will get picked up. I got some very disturbing news today about a policy the government is doing called the Mexico City Policy. The Mexico City Policy has been in effect since 2017, and it's funded by International Planned Parenthood. And essentially what it does is it funds abortions in foreign countries using American taxpayer money. And according to this article, the organization Marie Stopes International that provides these abortions, they received $120 million for global health assistance for the U.S. Agency for International Development. And according to this article, Trump had postponed that and actually canceled that program, and he withdrew his support from it last year. And the first thing that Joe Biden is doing in his first 2 days of office is he is reinstating this program to use American taxpayer money to fund abortions in foreign countries. Now, I don't care what you think about abortion. I don't care what your view is on abortion. I don't care what you feel about the religious significance of it. And I really actually don't even care about where your politics are, Biden, Trump, and all that. That doesn't matter. What matters to me is that I have two developmentally disabled children, and they are successfully navigating their developmental disorders because of what we call early intervention. And early intervention is the process where somebody actually gives them the tools at a young age to begin to receive services, and they are actually able to get the kind of services that they need for their developmental disability. The studies are very clear that the earlier that this starts and the earlier that somebody gets involved in developmental disability in terms of services and supports and education and training for these kids, the more successful the kids are, the better the improvement and the outcomes are as the kids get older. The later that you start development work on a child with developmental disabilities, the longer that it takes for them to actually see that same improvement that you did. And that's why so many states have gone to what they call early intervention programs, getting the kids in before they're 3 years old. All right. So I don't care what your politics are on abortion. I personally am appalled by the fact that my taxpayer money or your taxpayer money is being used for gender studies in Pakistan and all kinds of other absurd nonsense. Pallets of it being flown to Iran, pallets of that, but funding abortions in foreign countries and greenlighting that as one of your first presidential acts is just staggering to me. And the reason I mention that is because I want to bring up a couple of facts here. We have 427,000 disabled children right now as we speak that are sitting on a state waiting list. And what does that mean? That means that the federal government provides funding for children like my children that can have services and supports, ABA treatments, occupational therapy, physical therapy, things that these children need to be able to survive. And these are not foreign children. These are our children. These are American children. These are our kids. And they have a problem that needs to be addressed. Yet we find that as of now, 500,000 of our children are on waiting lists. And what are they waiting for? They're waiting for funding from the federal government through their state, because the state controls how much federal dollars go into their Medicaid programs and fund these children's treatment, in-home supports, community-based services, all of these fundings there. And if you look at the map, and I'm going to post the map on here, I'm going to download this video and actually enhance it with some images so that you could actually see it for yourself. what you'll notice is these states that yell the loudest and the ones that you would think would be pro-American, that would be pro kids and children, and would be the ones that would be the hardest against foreign funding for abortions in other countries, are the ones that have the longest waiting lists right now. Texas, Louisiana, Illinois, Ohio, Colorado, New Mexico. I'm looking at the map, Florida. These states have over 15,000 children waiting for services for their disabilities that they are already born with. And yet we are taking our money and throwing it out the window to fund foreign abortions. People, does that not resonate with you? As a father of disabled children, I watch how they struggle and I watch how their quality of life suffers because of their disability. And yet, instead of treating these children, American children, children born to hardworking people that are out there paying their taxes to fund all this nonsense, our Congress people, pick your state, because none of them are any good at it. I mean, South Carolina's good. They've got less than 99 kids on the waiting list. Okay, good job, Lindsey Graham. Okay, but Josh Hawley, in Missouri, less than 99 kids on the waiting list. Texas, Ted Cruz, you'd be ashamed of yourself. Over 15,000 people on the waiting list there. Louisiana, over 15,000 people on the waiting list. Most of the states that you would think wouldn't have anybody on the waiting list were the ones that like to be demonized, like California, Oregon, Washington, New York. Their kids are getting services. They have no waiting lists. Why do these states have these extensive waiting lists for children with disabilities, and we're paying for abortions in foreign countries, people? Wake the hell up. Where is your money going? If you don't think there's something wrong with a society that says we'd rather spend money on paying for foreign abortions than we do for treating disabled children, you need to get your head screwed on, because there is something profoundly wrong with your thinking. And again, like I said, I don't care what your politics are. I don't care what you believe about abortion, the religious end of it. I don't care about that. What I care about is how in the world we are letting our own children sit and waste away. I've heard waiting lists like Virginia are over 10 years in waiting. Virginia's got between 5,000 and 15,000 children on a waiting list that's 10 years long. Do you know what that means for a disabled children? That means it's over. It is over for these children. Their developmental early intervention, gone. 10 years, they get on the waiting list at 4 years old, 6 years old, when most kids are diagnosed about that age because they go into school. And unfortunately, we haven't been more aggressive about testing our kids. But the facts are that 1 in 83 children are diagnosed with some sort of developmental disability. And that number is actually shrinking to where 1 in 56 children, some studies are saying now, half of the children being born are being born with some sort of developmental disability. And Virginia is waiting 10 years to fund helping these children out. But I sure as hell don't see the Virginia senators sitting there objecting to sending money overseas to pay for foreign abortions. We are more worried about children that don't even exist yet in foreign countries than we are of the development of our own children who are born, living, and have a right to stand up right now as citizens and say, I exist. I deserve this. I am entitled to this. We're a country, we're America, for God's sake. And we are letting our children sit on the side of the road while they watch the bus of money head down to countries that we don't even go to, that those kids will never get a chance to go to, because states are putting them on a 10-year waiting list. By the time they get diagnosed at 6 years old, 10 years later, the state finally says, oh, here's a measly couple of dimes for you. Now we can get you started on your support. And guess what? They're 16 years old. It's over. It's over, folks. I don't understand how this is even possible in the country that I was born and raised in. Now, I know there's a lot of people that'll say, well, Texas has a big influx because there's a lot of people that just moved to Texas. You know what? I've read Texas, and if you really want to know about this, read each state's DD waiver is what it's called. Read their home and community-based services waiver program and find out what they are. These states go in, and not only do they put you on a huge waiting list, they actually cap the amount of money that they want to spend on your child, on a developmental disability child. They place a cap on how much money they're going to spend. Oh, because of budget, right? Well, since more than half of the money is coming from the federal government, maybe we can stop this madness of funding gender studies in fucking Pakistan and sending money to fund abortions internationally. Why don't they take care of their own problems? Meanwhile, we have children suffering in our own country, and these politicians are letting them suffer. In fact, Virginia, Texas, Louisiana, Florida are making them suffer because they're not allowing it. And don't tell me that Texas and Florida, for example, are great states, red states as they call them, conservative states. Can't afford it. California can afford it. They're spending their money into bankruptcy to pay for these services for kids. We know, we're here. But not only do our children not have a shred of hope in half of the United States, we can't move. I can't take a better job. My options are limited because that would mean moving to a state where my children would be sidelined while they're paying for abortions in other countries. If you think that this Dr. Fauci, who's ahead of this whole thing, is in your corner with regards to COVID and everything else, think again, because anybody who would greenlight spending money on foreign abortions while they sideline our disabled children is a psychopath, because they do not have the interests. Let me not say psychopath, sociopath, because they do not have the interests of the general public and the kids in our own freaking backyard. They don't have the interest of our own children before they think that they can have money put on pallets to fund terrorism, to fund gender studies in Pakistan, to fund some Chinese thing. Hunter Biden gets $2.2 billion handed to him from the Chinese. Biden administration has billions of dollars running through it, all foreign. Meanwhile, the future of this country is at risk. And why do I say that? Because, folks, if 1 out of every 2 children born in America has a developmental disability and we don't figure out how the hell to fix that or how to treat it, half of the adults in the United States in 10 years will have a developmentally disabled problem. Think about that. What's your country going to look like if half the country is developmentally disabled? Let's say you're not one of them that is. What do you think your quality of life is going to be like? What do you think your work environment's going to be like? What do you think your living conditions are going to be like? The productivity of America, labor, work, economics, all of it will fall because these children who are not being given the skills, because we're worried about sending money over to freaking foreign countries for foreign abortions, are not getting the help that they need. Folks, you're worried about politics. You're worried about corruption. You're worried about international things that are going to ruin our country. Let me tell you what's going to ruin our country. If you do not treat half of the population that's born into some state of developmental disability or some state of disability, and you don't address that problem, we have the iceberg and the Titanic is headed right for it. 10, 15 years from now, when half of the population of the United States are adults and have some form of developmental disability, how the hell do you think we're going to run a country? My last years, because I'm 55 years old, my last years are going to be spent watching this horror show unfold in front of me. And I'm going to die, I pray, happy that somebody might have taken this message. I don't know if you will or won't, but I'm going to tell you that my kids deserve it. Your kids deserve it. The kids that are being sidelined that are American citizens deserve it. And it doesn't matter. It crosses all boundaries, ethics, ethnicity, racial boundaries, religious boundaries. It doesn't matter. I don't care what color your child is. Your child is being sidelined. And they know it. Because every year these states go through and they do budgets and they audit and they know how much money they're spending on developmental disabilities and they're spending on disabled children. They know. And some do it better than others, but this is not negotiable. This is not something that one state should be doing better than another state. This is the lives of children we're talking about. Not unborn children. We don't know if they're going to be disabled, developmentally disabled or not if they get born, but that's okay. We're going to kill them before they're born. That's, some people make that decision. But these are children that are here now. They're standing up with a voice. They can't be heard. These kids can't call their congressman. They can't call the government in the state and say, why are you guys reining in the money that's being spent on this? Meanwhile, you're perfectly okay with funding gender studies in Pakistan. Congressman, governor, shame on the United States. Shame on you, Mr. Biden. I don't care what your politics are. You want unity? Get our core foundation straight. Get our kids help. If 1 in 86 kids is born with a developmental disability, or 1 in 56 kids, soon to be, half of the United States is born with a developmental disability, and you are sitting there doing nothing about it and allowing states to maintain 10-year waiting lists for kids to get help. I just fear I'm going to spend the last years of my life watching this train wreck, because that's what it's going to look like. And if you guys don't wake up, you're going to feel it too. I hope this gets to the right people. And you can tell I'm pretty impassioned about it, but I couldn't imagine what our lives would be like. Oh, I actually know what our lives would be like. We were in a state, Kentucky, that has an absolute shit program in terms of helping developmental. And they just say, oh, well, he's a slow talker. And oh, yeah, well, he's this. And oh, yeah, well, he's that. It wasn't until we moved to California that we actually got the services. And California gets a bad name for a lot of things, and a lot of them I don't disagree with. But in this particular aspect, California leads the way in terms of getting the children, if the parents will go and get that for them, the services that they need. I plead you, beg you to please look at what your state is spending on the developmentally disabled, and let's work together to try to fix this before we think about sending money on these stupid pork barrel projects. Thanks for watching.